Thank you very much, Cara, and thanks. Thanks for having me. So let's get started. I just wanted to talk a little bit today about the Future Fit Home service, which is something that we launched as a community energy group just over a year ago now. But the aim of this really is to help homeowners understand what they can do about their cold, drafty homes and how to make them much more comfortable and much more eco-friendly to live in, and really demystify this area, because it is a complicated area and it's not something that you want to get wrong if you're talking about changing things to do with your home. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about why our buildings are a problem. And then Future Fit Homes, which is the service that I manage and that we have launched up in Muswell Hill in partnership with Muswell Hill Sustainability Group. And what you can do today, some practical tips to take away. So some of you may have seen this figure before. 22% of the UK's carbon emissions come from our homes. And that is a huge percentage when you think about how we actually use energy in the UK. And we often think, you know, the government needs to come forward, the government needs to do things, companies are, causing all of the negative effects on climate change. Actually, there's quite a lot of power sitting right where we are in our own homes. And I'm sure most of you have been to some of the open homes events over the past month and seen that people are taking practical steps and action towards lowering their own personal footprint. So there are a few areas we look at when we talk about retrofit and when we talk about energy efficiency in general. These are the 4 key areas that I personally would break it down into. The first one is heating systems, how you're actually heating your home. You know, most of the energy that we use in our home is used to heat it, and then a small amount of it is used on, you know, lighting and other kinds of appliances, but most of it is used on heating our homes. And we're especially feeling that this the past weekend and today. And more importantly than how we heat our homes in some ways is how our homes actually lose heat. So this is called the fabric efficiency of your building. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about how we can tackle that in just a minute. The third point is generating renewable energy. We've all heard about the flashy technologies that are out there, like solar panels and solar thermal maybe, and electric vehicle charging and other bits like that. But how can we generate our own power? That is another aspect of retrofit. And finally, energy efficiency and smart home appliances. Now, this is an area that is growing. If you're into your tech, you will have seen bits like Alexa, the Amazon Alexa device, and some people are a bit skeptical about how technology should be encroaching into our homes and how we can be using it. But there is a lot of smart appliances that have come out that can help us reduce our energy consumption and make our homes a much more comfortable and healthy environment to live in without using much more energy, or by reducing the amount of energy that we use. So those are the 4 key areas that we're sort of interested in looking at. Now, I just wanted to go into the second one, because the second one really is the first one that you should be starting with, and that is how your home loses heat. When we talk about how a home loses heat and the word fabric efficiency, what we're really trying to focus on is making sure that when we put energy into our building, it's not losing it. It's not losing that energy very quickly, and it's not taking a long time to actually get the building to the point where it needs, lots of energy pumping in to keep it warm. So fabric efficiency is super important when it comes to retrofit. And in some ways, it is one of the sort of tougher areas to tackle, but one of the most important areas that will keep your home energy efficient or green in the long run. So you can put in all these new technologies, you can put in solar panels, you can put in a heat pump, but if your home is losing heat, the best energy saved is the energy that's not used. So focus on fabric efficiency is what we would say, or take a fabric first approach. Now, there are sort of four main areas when it comes to fabric efficiency and keeping the heat in. The first one, and hopefully the one that everyone already has done, is roof or loft insulation. This is a really easy one to install, and that's probably why most homes have already done it. But it's the place that the building will lose most heat from because heat rises. So your roof and your loft is where you want to start. You can then look at your walls. Cavity and solid wall insulation are the two main types of ways of insulating your walls. Cavity walls we find in newer buildings, and solid walls we find in older buildings. So the solutions for those are quite different. With solid walls, it's significantly harder to insulate your home because you're having to put the insulation on the outside, which is external wall insulation, or on the inside, internal wall insulation. You also want to take a look at your floors. So especially most or a large number of houses in London will have those suspended floorboards. So putting insulation under your floors can improve the energy efficiency, although this is one of the measures that can be a little bit disruptive, or quite disruptive to how you live. And finally, windows and draft proofing. Most people have already looked at getting their windows done. There was a lot of sort of excitement and support that came out around this a number of years ago. We all started installing double glazed windows. For buildings that live in conservation areas, it can be a little bit more expensive to get these changed because you have to keep the look of the sash windows, the old wooden sash windows on the outside. But it's a solution that lots of people have already installed. But we always forget to think about draft proofing. And we often find that this is a really easy fix as well. A lot of people know that they've got a draft coming from under the stairs, or they've got a draft from an old creaky door somewhere that they can feel coming in, but we don't think of that as energy efficiency, and that actually draft proofing is one of the easiest and first measures that you can install, and cheapest measures. So we like a bit of that as well. So a little bit about Celsi. We were set up about 7 years ago by local residents in Lewisham and Greenwich boroughs of southeast London. And it was a mixture of people. It was some energy industry geeks who had been in solar for a long time. It was also some journalists who'd worked on sustainability, people who've worked in co-ops, and also people who had experience in fuel poverty and in working in non-profits. But they all had one vision, and that was for a low carbon future where everyone had access to affordable energy. So no one's really being left behind in that energy transition. So that's a big part of what we focus on as well. But we've now installed solar on a number of sites, and our fuel poverty service has been really, really busy throughout the past 2 years during lockdown, and now in the aftermath of lockdown, or possibly going into another one, let's hope not. And we've had a ton of volunteers, supporters on the way. We've hit over 10,000 volunteering hours now, and we stopped counting that a few years ago because it just got a little bit too much. But Future Fit Homes is one of the services that we've recently launched over the past year or so, to really support people go through this process of understanding what to do with their homes and how to tackle their own emissions. So it is a relatively new program when we talk about the little different bits that we've done. So it may change over time in what we do, and dependent on the feedback that we get. But the main aim is to sort of, as I mentioned earlier, demystify this space of retrofit. So the reason that this is important is because we were finding that when people were going to look at retrofit, they could get advice from builders, or they could get advice from architects, which was quite expensive, or they could get advice from the internet, but the internet's mainly full of information from manufacturers about different technologies, putting forward why their technology is the best technology. So there wasn't anywhere that you could find trustworthy and impartial advice, but especially advice that was tailored to your own home. So that's what we tried to do. We've got a team of retrofit coordinators who you can book a call with and speak to, or who can come and visit your home, have a look around and give you that advice. And they've been qualified to the retrofit coordination qualification. They've also done retrofit assessor qualifications and DEA. So they've got a good amount of experience in retrofit. We're also members of a cooperative called Retrofit Works. Retrofit Works is an organisation that brings together people from all sort of angles of the building industry focused on retrofit to really create a vetted and trusted network of contractors. And we know that one of the problems with retrofit is actually finding the builders to do this work. So that's why we have partnered with Ecofurb, who will be presenting after me, and Josie will talk a little bit more about what they do. Of course, since we're a community energy group, all of our surpluses that we make off of this go back into our fuel poverty program and alleviating carbon emissions as well. So there are a number of different services that we currently offer, and we might change these dependent on people's needs in the future. But the first place to start really is a free half-hour phone call. What this does is actually just help our team understand where you're coming from, what you're looking at, and what your solutions might be to start off with. So if you're at the point where you're really not sure where to start, this is a good way to get started. We also do one-to-one advice. It's charged at an hourly rate, so that means it's really flexible as to what you need. This can either be done remotely or it can be done in the home, and we charge £59 an hour. If it's in the home, there's a £30 call-out charge as well added to that. This could be anything from you've got a concern about a certain room that you want to retrofit, or you've got a concern about a certain area of your room and you want someone to come and have a look at it. This would be a good way to go. Or maybe you've had quotes from builders and you want to compare the different quotes and get some feedback from them. You could send that in to us and we would have a look at that remotely and give you some sort of impartial feedback on that. So it's really, really flexible to actually what you need. This one has been really, really popular, the thermal imaging survey. This is a great one because you can actually see where your home is leaking heat from right in front of your eyes. One of our team will, well, two people within our team will come and set up the kit, will lower the air pressure in your home, and that will enable us to see exactly where your home is finding those cold spots through a thermal imaging camera. And what you'll get at the end of it is not only having been able to go through your home with our advisor, looking at the results on the camera and them talking you through what you're actually seeing in your building, but you'll also get a report afterwards, and that will have recommendations as to what changes you can make to solve those problem areas, in addition to the videos and the photos from the report. So you can have a look back at it in a year's time and see if you've fixed all of those problems that you identified last year. And that can only be done in the winter. So we're getting booked out quite quickly for this one. If you're interested in having this done, we're looking at bookings for January right now, so we can try and get something in for them. We also do energy performance certificates. These are £59. So if you're looking at selling your home or renting your home, you're going to need one of these. And retrofit coordination. So I'll let Josie talk to you a little bit more about what retrofit coordination is and what it means, but our team work in partnership with Ecofurb to have someone trusted and impartial to the builder who can come and make sure that all of your work is being done to standard and is has been designed in the way that is helpful for what you actually want to solve. And then we've also run lots of webinars, and we've got a blog area on our website for information. We've also got a Facebook group, so if you've had work done that you've got some feedback on in your home, it would be really, really great to see you share that information with people on the Facebook group, and I'll post the link to that just after my presentation. So this is how it usually works. It can be a complicated area. There's lots of services there, as you've seen, but usually people will find us online and they'll book that half-hour call, have a chat with our advisors, and then we can go one of two ways, dependent on what your needs are and what your budget is. So if you're just looking to do a small amount of work, or you're not quite sure what your budget is yet, and you're not sure what you want to get done quite yet, and you want to sort of dip in and out of services, you can go through our DIY and Kickstart route, which means you would be accessing our in-house services and you'll get all that one-to-one advice, but it'll be charged at a low rate, £60 an hour, and you can come and go as you wish and whatever you need. If you're definitely wanting to go for a bigger project for retrofit, we would advise that you go through the deep retrofit route. So we would refer you to Ecofurb, and they would create a whole house plan for you and assign you a retrofit coordinator who would be from our team, and go through the whole process of retrofit from right at the beginning to right at the end. But I'll let Josie elaborate on that. But yes, at the end of it, hopefully you will feel like you have the solutions to retrofit your home, and you can always come back to us for more advice if you need it. So this is just a quick look at the thermal imaging surveys and the thermal imaging reports that I mentioned earlier. So as you can see here, this is just an example from someone's home that we looked at last winter. And you can see this is a picture of their bathroom, and the shower is right here. And what you're looking at here is those dark blue patches. And those dark blue patches signify an area where there is cold coming in. So it's a big temperature difference between the red and the pink here and the dark blue here. You can also see that dark blue just around the corner of the window. But what this dark blue patch is actually showing is there is a problem here with thermal bridging. So the way that the wall meets the ceiling, you're seeing that there is heat is basically escaping in between that gap, and that could be better insulated right there, yeah, in the corner of the shower. So that's just one little thing. On the left here, you've got the whole report, and you can see there are pictures here with recommendations for each different area. So we've got the air vents in the bedroom here, and the bathroom and toilet, the faults that are found, and then the solutions that you can consider. So it's a really, really comprehensive report. These are just some reviews of what people thought of the thermal imaging surveys. So it's not just me that's getting excited about them. You can see what other people think of it for themselves. But it's a really good one to have, especially if you've had some work done and you want to check the quality of that work as well. It's really insightful. these are some of the events that we've run in the past. We've most recently done some webinars on conservation area homes. So working with Historic England on the advice around what buildings and conservation areas can do to tackle retrofit. And we will probably be doing a few events in January and February, more focused around sort of general greening your home and how to get started, and possibly some workshops as well on DIY bits and bobs. So if you're interested, do keep an eye on our website. And the last sort of comment that I wanted to leave you with was, I know this retrofit journey can be very tough and complicated and stressful, and making changes to your home is a tough thing to do. And then add on top of that, trying to finance it and find how to pay for it. And on top of that, finding the right builders and the contractors to do the work. But don't give up on your home improvement journey. There's a lot to be done. It's a big impact that can be made by improving our homes. And it's not just a big impact on climate change, it's also a big impact on your life and the comfort of your home. And if you visited some of those open homes earlier this month, you will have seen actually how comfortable they are to live in, and how currently our buildings are not built to a great standard to actually keep us warm and keep us comfortable. So what can you do today? First thing is book a free half-hour call and go through exactly what you're thinking of doing, what your concerns are, and you'll be able to speak to either myself on renewable energy or David and Dominic on fabric efficiency, because that's their area of speciality. And you can just find a way to get started. So if you've been stuck in a rut and you're just not sure where to start, then that's the one for you. If you want some more information on retrofit, you can check out our past blogs and webinars. You will have seen we've got one about heat pumps, which I know is a hot topic for a lot of people. So do have a look at that before you think about getting a quote for a heat pump, because it will give you a lot of insight into actually what you need to ask installers before they quote. And if you want to take some action today, there's two very easy to use tools on our website. The first one is switching suppliers. You will have heard a lot about supplier switching in the past few months. A lot of smaller suppliers going bust. It's been a really busy and tough time in the energy market, but if you've never looked at your energy supply before, the best and the easiest way to go green is to pick a green tariff. So just think about what kind of energy tariff you're on at the minute and make sure that you're on a green tariff. You can also get quotes for solar panels on our website. So just visit the services section and click renewable energy, and it will take you through a little tool where you can draw around your roof and get sent quotes from 3 different installers if that's something that interests you. It's also got some calculations there for heat pumps and electric vehicle chargers. So if you want to think about how that would impact your bills, you can go ahead and do that on the website as well. But I think I've talked, ranted on about retrofit a little bit too long. So I'm going to pass on to Mary or Josie to keep you up to speed on the rest of it.
Yes. No, that was just right, Nadia. Thank you very much. That's very clear. And can I just ask a question? Who is eligible in terms of where they live or any other criteria for your service, for the Future Fit home service?
That's a really good question. So anyone who lives in the Muswell Hill area in Haringey can access our in-person services, and anyone in London can access our online services. Alternatively, anyone in Southeast London, but I would assume that everyone here is Haringey. But yeah, we've been working with Cara and Muswell Sustainability Group, so that we can bring those in-person services up North London as well.
And Nadia, just to clarify, that's, I think we said the whole of Haringey, didn't we? Not just Muswell Hill. Yeah.
Whole of Haringey, that's right.
Brilliant. Are you okay to stop sharing your screen?
Of course, yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. So I think we'll now invite Josie to speak to us and then take questions at the end. We'll do that through the chat. Makes it a bit easier. And I'm very pleased to welcome Josie Evans from Parity Projects. We've already heard a bit about Ecofurb, but please fill us in, Josie.
Okay, lovely. Hi, I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm just going to share my screen. I hope you can see slides there.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can hear me. Fantastic, great. Okay, so I've actually got a scary amount of slides here today, so I'm going to see how I go. I want to do three things if we have time. One is to show you some of our case studies. Another is to talk you through what the Ecofurb service is, and another is to show you a little bit of the statistics that Parity Projects produces. So we'll see how we go, and I may, if you need to stop me and tell me to hurry up, then please do, because I think we finish at 7 o'clock, don't we? Is that right?
7:30. 7:30.
Oh, 7:30. Oh,
wait, go on a bit. Yeah. Yeah.
But you don't want me to talk for an hour. That's
don't rush. Don't rush.
Okay, lovely. Okay, so first of all, a little bit about what Ecofurb is. So Ecofurb is a partnership between two organisations, Parity Projects, who have been around since 2005, and Retrofit Works, who've been around since 2014. So that's bringing together a company that has housing data on London and the rest of the country, and also produces the software that allows people to do accurate energy calculations. They're working to get, Parity Project is working together with an organisation called Retrofit Works that Nadia has just mentioned, is cooperative of installers and also advocates, what we call advocates. So that's community groups like CELSI and also Muswell Hill sustainability groups and others who want to promote retrofit in general. So that's a not-for-profit cooperative. The two have come together to create Ecofurb, which is, the idea is to make it easy for people to retrofit. As Nadia said, the larger projects, a guide is about 10K plus. If you're looking to get advice on maybe a single measure or a smaller job, then going to Future Fit Homes is an excellent start. Just a little bit of history here is that Ecofurb was born out of a government pilot that ended in March. There was a little bit of funding, probably not quite enough, to get the project started up and to look at the issues that there are in the supply chain. What is making it hard for people, what are the barriers, and how to get the supply chain to work effectively together. So that's how we started off with a little bit of government funding as Ecofurb. But the organisations behind have been around for a long time and working very successfully in the industry. So I'm going to start with a demonstration project because I know it's a Green Open Homes series of events, so you want to see some actual projects. This one is actually back in 2010, and it was one of our Parity's directors. He wanted to do his house in a way that would become a demo home to show his journey through and what you can do, and he wanted to do it in a realistic way that other people could see that it is something that people can do. So this is his house, and built in. It's a Victorian house, semi-detached, solid wall, difficult alley because it's neither detached nor semi-detached nor terraced, and it was losing heat down many sides. Really bad insulation, electric storage heaters, etc. There was a lot to do. These are some photos to show you kind of how it started off. So they were in a position where they had a real project on their hands anyway. So in terms of their overall spend, a lot of it went on things that needed to be done, regardless of retrofit, as it were. So that's the sort of starting point for them. And their philosophy, the way that they wanted to approach it, was to be as cost effective as possible. They wanted to use DIY where possible. They wanted to end up with a house that looked normal. They didn't want to sort of go modern. They wanted to keep their Victorian features, etc. And they were aiming for 80% CO2 reduction. They really wanted to show that this is something that everyone can do and it's not a complete pipe dream. So as I said, their overall spend was quite a lot. It was 10 years ago, about 100 grand, but a lot of that was necessary work because the house was in an absolute tip. It wasn't just the retrofit work that cost that. I think the retrofit works actually cost about £35,000. So looking on what they did, so the standard renovation, as you can see, we've already seen what needed doing, and this is a list of non-retrofit measures that needed to be put into place. And then looking at what was a sort of non-standard renovation, so improving the energy efficiency of their home. They added roof insulation, flat roof insulation, solid wall insulation because it's Victorian property, both on the inside and outside, depending whether it was the front or the back of the house. They put in underfloor insulation, solid floor insulation. They zoned their heating. They put on solar voltaic panels and solar thermal for hot water. At the time, they didn't put in a heat pump because the heat pump market wasn't as mature as it is now. And also there's been decarbonisation of the grid as well since then. So what did they achieve? So the modelling before they started their retrofit showed that they would save between 78 to 83% CO2. They have nearly hit that target, but there is still some work to do to achieve that. But pretty much on target there. Total spend, as I mentioned, was 100 grand, but that included building extensions, new kitchens, bathrooms, etc. This was 10 years ago. So you can see the cost here, 35,000 for the energy efficiency measures. And I've not gone on to slide display, so it's all looking a little bit amateur here with me clicking around, but it's easier for me to see what I'm doing, so apologies about that. So basically, yes, for the retrofit measures 10 years ago, but you can see the costs were, within the context of the project they were doing, were quite reasonable. And the running costs, now that they've finished their renovation, are negative because they're putting electricity into the grid through the renewable heat incentive, which unfortunately is coming to an end, but we'll wait to see how that develops. What does their house look like afterwards? These are some pictures, not the best ones I've seen actually. It's a lovely renovation. And what are they going to do now? So as I said, 10 years ago, it wasn't the right time to put a heat pump in, according to the modelling, but at this point they think that it is, and they're going to come back, use Ecofurb and put in a heat pump. And they're hoping that that's going to be fairly painless. In fact, it might involve enlarging radiators, but apart from that, it shouldn't be too disruptive. So that's the demonstration project. That's where we started, wanting to show a full retrofit project. Then this was 10 years ago. Parity went on to offer something called the Home Energy Master Plan. So at this point, we didn't have any link to the supply chain at all, but we gave advice to people who wanted to do retrofit. This again is quite a large project, and they really did a full fit out on their homes as well, JP and Gabby in Battersea. And as you can see, there's a list of measures that they installed, as well as doing a renovation. The reason I'm mentioning these guys is because it really gave us the reason that we wanted to apply for the government funding to try and put together the end-to-end service for bigger renovations. Because although these JP and Gabby ended up being really, really pleased with their retrofit, they actually had quite a difficult time getting there because they weren't very successful in getting the right builders in. So we were really interested in trying to get this sort of one-stop shop, end-to-end service, whatever you want to call it, together for people who are doing larger projects to try and help them with that part of it. So you can see that they said they're absolutely in love with how little they need to heat the house. They actually pinched themselves because they didn't know what was possible. They credit that to the number crunching that Parity Projects did, but actually they really had a bit of a difficulty with the contractors. They picked the cheapest one. Their advice is don't go with the cheapest contractor, it ends up costing you more. We actually stuck with, we weren't meant to be, but we stuck with them throughout the project in terms of advice. And that was another thing that we ended up seeing. People really appreciated having a professional on hand when the builders were in the house for a retrofit as big as this. Obviously not everyone's doing something as complicated. But we really saw the need to help people find the right installers and then also be on hand to help them with their questions as the work was being done. And they are an example, but actually indicative of several other of the customers that we had throughout the last 10 years. They were really asking for this kind of one-stop shop to be set up. So that's what we did. And this is how the journey looks at the moment. Again, to say that, you know, if this is sort of looking at works, if you're looking at a spend of over about £10,000, if you're sort of looking single measure or smaller projects, then getting advice through Future Fit Homes would be a really good idea. The way that we've designed the Ecofurb service is actually so that you can take one part or two parts or three parts. So you can use our free plan builder. I'll show you how to access that at the end of the presentation, and have a look at what the costs might be like for your home. You can get a home survey, someone coming around and doing what we call a whole house plan, and telling you what measures would actually be most suitable for your home. That's the paid version of the free online plan builder. So you could stop at that juncture just with a whole house plan and then decide what to do yourself. You might already know some contractors that you really like and you want to use them, and then you might go down that route. You may go to step 2 and decide to get building performance requirements. That's a document that is for your contractors primarily, or for you to help you when you're going out to tender to find contractors. Or you can ask us to use it to go out to tender amongst our cooperative of contractors and get quotations back again. So that shows you in detail how the different retrofit measures should work together so that you don't end up with one contractor doing the roof insulation, the other doing the wall insulation, and actually they don't really fit together because no one specified that part that goes in the middle. So that's a document that you can then use yourself or ask us to use. And then step 3 would be if you asked us to be with you throughout the project and there to the end to sign off to say that the project has been done in the way that was in the building performance requirement document. So it's a 3-step process, and you can choose which of those steps you want to go on to. So just to a little bit more here, this is the plan builder. So that's just one page of it. You would go through, update the information about your home. In the previous section, it works much better if you take the time to update the information about your home properly, and then it shows you a list of measures that would be most suitable for your home. Rough costs, they're not quotes, but rough costs about how much it might cost you to go ahead with that. If you're then interested in getting that done in person and paying for someone to come and do a survey, you can submit your plan from this online tool and ask a retrofit coordinator to come out to your home and do a whole house plan. This is one page again from the whole house plan. There is a lot of information there to show you, modelled on your house, show you what would work for your house and how much each measure would save you in terms of carbon, in terms of fuel bills, and roughly how much it would cost. Again, at this stage, it's not quotes, but it's to give you a really good idea of what measures would work best for your particular house. The next stage, as I mentioned, is if you want to go on and get a building performance requirements document. This is quite difficult, an in-depth is what I'm trying to say, an in-depth technical document which will help you either go out to tender or help your builders know what needs to be done. And then step 3 would be actually having the work done. So if you want us to, we can go out and get quotations from the cooperative, not-for-profit cooperative of installers, and we'll help you choose those quotations. Or at the moment, the actual truth is that the contractors are so busy they don't really want to be doing part of a 3-quote process. Obviously, for much bigger jobs, that can still happen, but for smaller ones, you'll find that actually getting 1 quote is probably quite a struggle as it is. Some of you may have already been out there looking for quotations, but quality contractors are very, very busy. So we would get estimates, look at those with you, and then help you with the contract process with that contractor. You'd have meetings with your coordinator throughout the installation, and at the end the coordinator would sign off the works, and that you wouldn't make your final payment until the coordinator had said yes, this meets the requirements. So there's reassurance built into that. So just just to show you one more project, one more case study. So this is Vaughan, one of our customers currently at the moment. So this is a slightly smaller project than some of the ones that we saw before, but just to show you that he's someone who came to us. He'd already had some work done because he knew he wanted to get on with it. He'd put in PV panels, he'd had double glazing. He already lives in a house that had cavity wall insulation because it's a fairly new house. He then wanted to see the whole house plan, so he wanted to get a picture of what would be best for his home. So he came to us for a whole house plan and decided to go ahead with loft insulation and a heat pump. So we're helping him with that at the moment. Where have I got to on time, and how much more time would you like to give me? You're on mute.
Yeah, I think you if you take another 5 minutes or so, yeah, we're still okay.
Okay. So what I wanted to show you here is a page of graphs that looks to me utterly overwhelming, but I'll talk to you a little bit about why I've got these here. So Priority Projects is a company that produces software. There's an engine behind the software that the Retrofit Coordinator uses to do the energy calculations for your home. We've been working for 15 years or so, for example, with local authorities on planning, looking at the areas that they work with, how much it's going to cost to do retrofit works in their areas or at their own stock and things like that. So that's sort of Priority Projects background. And in speaking to Muswell Hill Sustainability Group about what would be interesting to show today, they said it might be interesting to show a few slides that show the statistics on Haringey. So what again, I'm not an expert on this, so if people have questions that I can't answer, I can always come back to you later. But this is some of the analysis we've done recently for boroughs in London. So we're looking here at what the current situation in Haringey is. I won't talk you through each graph, but basically just to say that the real picture in Haringey is that there are a lot of Victorian properties, a lot of solid walls. There are a lot of flats. A lot of houses are broken down into flats, which has its own challenges because one person might want to do work and another person might not. And currently a lot of gas boilers. That's something that obviously we all hope to see changing soon. So that's the sort of baseline in Haringey. Just to have a little look at the total investment that might be needed, this rather terrifying figure up in the top right hand corner. This is across all different tenures, all different ownerships for properties. So this is private homes. So obviously not one person's going to be paying for this because it's private homes, it's council owned homes, it's landlord owned homes, etc. But this is the sort of investment that we're talking about coming from all sorts of different pockets, as it were, to retrofit to a level that would meet UK carbon targets. So as you can see, they really are quite high figures here. So just to move on to the next slide here, how does that investment break down? Well, in fact, it's sort of almost half and half fabric that Nadia was talking about. Very important to get the fabric of the home so that you're not sort of trying to put a heat pump into a sort of Swiss cheese home that's got holes all over it. Get your fabric sort of up to scratch and then get the heat pump in there. So it's about roughly equal investments in fabric and in heat pumps and hot water. And who's going to do all of this work? So this is another thing that we've got a lot of people asking for us to do analysis on this at the moment, and it's a really interesting challenge, because unfortunately I don't have the figures of how many tradespeople there are currently, but it's nowhere near the tradespeople that are needed to do the work over the next, so this is broken down as if the work were to be done until 2050, really a staggering figure of total trade years down there. We don't have that many people working in the area at the moment, and that's another thing that Ecofurb is trying to work really hard on with Retrofit Works, is how to work with other actors, you know, colleges and others who work in the area to increase the supply chain, because there just aren't enough people at the moment. So where's Ecofurb got to? This is our, we've been working for about a year. We have got, this is the projects across London, actually in last month, and it's accelerating at the moment because it's winter. A lot more people are coming to us right now. But these are the projects distributed across London, and we'd really like to be seeing this taking off, but there is a supply chain restriction. So you can see Haringey is doing really, really well. And after this event, I hope we've got 22 people on the call. I hope that doubles. Yeah, that's the picture of where the projects are happening. It's quite exciting. And what can you do straight after the event, if you'd like to find out a little bit more about Ecofurb, would be to go to, I think someone's just posted it in the chat actually, to go to www.ecofurb.com. And if you click on this kind of turquoise arrow, it'll take you to the free plan builder, and that'll be a place where you can start to just get an idea for what might work for your home. As I said, it's really worth taking the time to update the details about your home in Home Info. They should be pretty good already. We've got really good housing stock data, but there are always some streets and some houses where the data isn't up to date. Obviously, we don't also know what you did last year, maybe, and you put something in and that's not showing. So it's really worth going into there, updating your Home Info, pressing go and seeing what comes out for your house and seeing what kind of spend you might need. So I'll finish there and hand back to Mary. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Well, thank you very much, Josie. That's excellent. And so I just want to be really clear. So Ecofurb is open to Londoners, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Well, you must live in London. And must you own your... Right.
And in Cambridge.
Sorry? And Cambridge.
And in Cambridge, yeah.
Ah, branching out. Okay, whereas Future Fit Homes, if you want an in-person service, you need to live in Haringey or in South East London, Nadia, is that right? But for the online services, anyone who lives in London. Lovely. Thank you. Can I just go through some questions that have come through on the chat? And we have one from Adiba, am I pronouncing that right? And she is asking, what's the difference between underfloor insulation and solid floor insulation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So solid floor insulation is essentially where you've got a concrete floor and you put a layer of insulation over the top of that, and then you put your normal flooring, like your, you know, liner or carpet or whatever you want to put. And underfloor insulation is usually where you've got suspended floorboards and then there's a gap between them, and then you've got the ground and you put the insulation in between that gap, essentially.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just put it, I think, Josie, on your slide, you just said there was £8,000 for windows in that case study you showed us. And it just said, was this on eco grounds, the that so cost?
Was that Chris's
the first house you showed us?
Yes, I think it's the only one that we put costs for. No, so I actually asked him about that as well, because it sounds really cheap. And the answer, one of the answers here is that he did quite a lot of DIY on his project, and one of the bits that he actually did was replacing panes within existing Victorian sash windows. So he kept the actual original no, they've got new windows because they had been changed for horrible PV ones. But basically, it's not that's not a very comparable figure, I would say, for windows.
Because it's a big house. Yeah. And just while we're on windows, Tony Edwards has pointed out that secondary glazing is an economic alternative to complete replacement.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
And just on windows as well, it's a really good point that Tony made. I think secondary glazing is about half as sort of half as good as double glazing, but a lot cheaper, obviously. But you also want to think about overheating in the summer as well. So there's some film that you can buy if you do have a south-facing window that you can just put onto the window, and it stops overheating in the summer. So that's another thing to consider. Super cheap fix.
Thank you. Thank you. Albede is asking, what is a larger project? How do you define a larger project?
So basically, I would say you don't really need to use a service like Ecofurb, an end-to-end service, if you're thinking about doing a single measure, except for perhaps a heat pump. Right. Single measures, you know, you would hope you would find a good contractor who knows their business, who can go ahead and do that and give you the good advice. It's when you have multiple measures that might interact in ways that the separate contractors aren't really aware of because they haven't been trained to think like that. That's when we can be of a lot of use, basically. As I said, a sort of general mark we find works quite well is around 10 grand. So it's more expensive, complicated single measures or the multiple measure jobs. That's how we class larger.
Yes, so then you need the services of your retrofit coordinator. Yeah, yeah. I've just thrown in a question about flats actually, because we've had more queries this year during this Green Open Homes on. Well, I live in a flat. You know, I got an aging boiler. I haven't got room for a heat pump. What can I do? Have you helped clients who live in flats?
I'm sure Nadia will have something to say here as well. Yes, we do. We have clients who live in flats, and it is hard. It is much harder because it requires, you know, if you're particularly thinking of solid wall insulation, it's really much better to be thinking together with the other people in the building as well. But no, we definitely do work with people in flats. One of the case studies on our website is actually someone in a mansion block, which is not the easiest of properties to do, but they did a very successful retrofit. So you could have a look at that, for example.
And excuse me, David is asking, can you talk about the experience of sprayed insulation applied to suspended timber floors, e.g. Qbot? Is that
yeah, so David's identified, there must be something about David's and Qbots, because David from our team absolutely loves Qbot. He adores it. And Qbot is a really good solution where you've got suspended floors but a very small crawl space underneath, so it's hard to go down there and actually install the insulation, and the robot just drives around under the floor and sprays that insulation on itself. So it can be a really good solution for either where you've got really small crawl space or places where you don't want to rip out the whole floor and cause a lot of disruption when you're putting underfloor insulation in. One thing I would mention on the spray foam insulation is just take care with that. Whenever you're thinking about insulation, you've got to think about how breathable the material is, and you've got to think about moisture as well. And where you're putting insulation on wood especially, you really want to take care and think about that moisture.
Thank you. Thank you. Tony is asking, what standards are there for draft proofing? We've recently had Ready Seals draft proofing. Vertical sash windows with integral new parting bead and staff bead, complete with brushes. Our ground landlord provided draft seals. So I don't get that bit, Tony. The draft seals are more drafty after. The gap between brush and sash, the gale through the ends of the mid rails, missing top brushes. There's no staff bead at the top. It's getting quite specific there. So your question was what the standards, though? That's what you're wondering. What standards are there for draft proofing?
Good Question. As far as I'm aware, there aren't any specific standards to draft proofing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Josie. So draft proofing around the sort of doors and windows and all of that stuff is a really quick and easy measure to install. And the brushes that you've got there, Tony, are great if there's a really big gap under your doors. But it's not it's not a long-term solution. If you're really looking at making your building airtight, you probably want to think about putting a new door in instead, or where you've got window seals that aren't as tight as they should be. You ought to be in the long term looking at replacing those windows. But draft proofing is they're quick and they're cheap and they're good, and it's always better to do something than have that gap and have that heat being lost all day, every day for the next 4 months or 5 months.
Thank you.
Excuse me, just about what you've just said. I've been told that if you put secondary glazing inside, it's very important to draft seal the outside first, whether or not that's your only energy improvement, or whether you have a secondary glazing inside, because if you have great drafts blowing in the gap between the old windows outside and the new secondary glazing inside, it doesn't make it secondary glazing. It only makes it 1.5 glazing or quarter extra glazing. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you're completely right. So the way that double glazing works is it's got those 2 panes of glass and then it's got the vacuum in between, and that is what keeps the cold on the outside and the heat on the inside. When you're putting secondary glazing in, you want to use the same concept. So you want to keep both levels of glazing as airtight as you can. Obviously, if you've got those leaky windows and you can put draft proofing in, it's a good idea to do that. But yeah, you're completely right, Tony, on that one.
Thank you. And fine. Oh no, there's one you popped up. A question about Ecofurb. If there's a £10,000 project, then David is asking, what does Ecofurb charge for the retrofit coordinator service?
So the way that we're working,
not 100,000.
Okay, so the way that we're working at the moment is that we charge for the reports. So that's for the whole house plan, which we call an Ecofurb plan, and that's 295. And then we charge for the building performance requirements, and that depends on the size of the project. An average one is about £500 at the moment, but if you're doing a full deep retrofit, it might be over 1,000. And then in terms of the support throughout the installation, currently the model that we work with is that the installers, the contractors, pay a 10% fee on the job that they do. And we provide a service that's both for the homeowner and for the contractor. So if you had a quote from, say, the same contractor outside Ecofurb, it would probably be cheaper, but probably not by the same value as the percentage fee that they're charging, that we are charging them, because we offer them and the customer a service. So it's what we're trying to do is sort of create a win-win situation. So we're working with that at the moment, but we are actually considering doing straight consultancy as well, so that you could get come to us and sort of more like getting an architect. You could pay for the services directly to us instead of going through the sort of cooperative 10% model.
Thank you. And then Tony's asking your view on Enefit, the retrofit version of the passive house standard. Is it a good idea? Why do you ask, Tony?
Well, it does have standards. I've been to a lecture at some building exhibition that seemed to have quite a lot of standards. I didn't look into it deeply at the time, and the standards are one of the things that's telling to builders, oh, please do it to Enefit or standard or something, might be quite useful to get clear what you want. As I have just described in my earlier question, that we've had ready seals, draft proofing put in, and it's colder and more drafty now than my previous DIY effort to stick on draft proofing.
Good. So Enefit, I think this is probably going to be one of personal opinion rather than there's no specific industry direction on this. Enefit is a really good model, I think. But it's very expensive to achieve in our older homes. Very expensive
It
to
is,
do.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you always want to be obviously working to the best standard that you can, the highest level of air tightness, and that's what the retrofit coordinator will really be able to help you understand in a lot of detail as well, what standard you want to work to. But for most people on an average budget, they're not going to be able to get to Enefit standard. It's not something that we should all be completely upset about, because I think doing something is always better than doing nothing, no matter how much it is that you're doing. But yeah, I think it's a great standard to work to if you've got the budget for it.
Well, not me, but thank you.
Thank you very much. And we just had a few comments from people here this evening, which is interesting to hear. Cara's mentioned she has secondary glazing. Lucy has pointed out she and Gordon have an indoor air source heat pump, so you don't have to have an outdoor space. And Judith, hello Judith, lives in Cumbria and has had her sash windows taken out, presumably taken apart, refurb, and then reinstalled. So it doesn't mean throwing something away to make improvements to elderly windows. So thank you very much for those questions. And I think we should probably let our speakers go and have their evening meals if they haven't yet. Thank you very much. Can I just announce we have one more Green Open Home event. It's next Monday, the 6th of December, and it really is at 7:30 p.m. And that's about the situation if you're renting or if you're a landlord. I think a lot of our discussion has assumed perhaps that people own their homes. So it's called Energy Efficiency for Renters, and we're welcoming Tom Ruxton from the Heat Project in Waltham Forest and local landlord James Tanner. So please come along next Monday evening. And thank you very much to Nadia Smith from Chelsea and to Josie Evitts from Parity Projects telling us about Ecofurb. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Anything else, Cara, I should say before we say goodnight? No. Stay warm. Thank you very much for coming, everybody, and
Thanks,
good evening to everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Cheers.
Good night, Mike, Jen.
Okay.